So will the US really acquire Greenland?
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes.
Okay, Trump has said a lot of crazy things over the years. Magnets not working underwater stands out, but he's also said recently that he's wanting to annex Canada and then buy out the Panama Canal, both of which I don't think are likely. But one thing he did say that I think is very interesting is the idea of the US acquiring Greenland. But how realistic is Greenland becoming the 51st state? And what's the likelihood of this actually happening? Or does it becoming a sovereign territory make a bit more sense? Stick around as we get into all of it. All right, this concept isn't entirely new. Historically, the US has expanded its territorial base through purchases like Alaska in 1867 or annexations like Hawaii in 1898. In fact, this isn't even the first time the US has tried to buy Greenland. There have been several instances throughout history where the US has made a play at acquiring Greenland. Once in 1867, 1910, in 1946, President Truman even offered $100 million for Greenland in an offer to Denmark that they smartly declined. And in 2019, during Trump's first presidency, it came floating like an iceberg back to the surface again. So Greenland holds a significant strategic value due to its location in the Arctic and its abundant natural resources, including rare earths, precious metals, graphite, uranium, and not to mention the potential for offshore oil drilling and fishing rights. The US already maintains a military base with the Thule Air Base, underscoring its geopolitical importance. The other prominent advantages that stand out is that due to global warming, yes, it's real, it's huge, contributions to the melting of the ice caps, the Northwest Passage has the potential to be a dependable and feasible commercial trade route, whereas before it had primarily always been frozen over. Greenland's Prime Minister, Egede, has been vocal about the island's desire for independence from Denmark. And in a recent statement, he emphasized, Greenland is for the Greenlanders. We don't want to be Danes. We don't want to be Americans. We obviously want to be Greenlanders. That doesn't quite play into the whole 51st state scenario now, does it? I respect where the guy's coming from. Denmark, which currently oversees Greenland's foreign affairs and defense, has also weighed in. Danish Prime Minister Frederiksen stated, "We have suggested a conversation with Trump, and I expect it will take place, indicating a willingness to discuss the matter diplomatically." At the end of the day, what they're going to want, which everybody wants in any negotiation, is more money, agreeable trading terms, and defense-related assurances. So within the United States, opinions are divided. Shockingly enough, some policymakers see the acquisition as a strategic move to counter Russian and Chinese influence in the Arctic. However, others view it as an unrealistic endeavor that could strain relationships with key allies. But it really shouldn't be divided. It should come down to this. Will this be accretive if Greenland becomes affiliated with the United States in any way, depending on the price? I would wholeheartedly say yes, it would be. Again, depending on the price. I mean, if the US paid every Greenlander $1 million, it would only come out to $57 billion, which, I mean, if that's what it would take to buy Greenland, it would be super, super, super cheap to buy a country like Greenland for $57 billion. I mean, just to put it into context, that's less than a third of what the US has already given to Ukraine, right? So just think about that. It's not that much money for a country to actually get something in return. Considering the strong sentiments for independence among Greenlanders, Denmark's current stance, and the complexities of international law, experts estimated the probability of the US successfully acquiring Greenland to be quite low, perhaps around 5%. The path to such an acquisition is fraught with diplomatic and ethical challenges, and I think the more likely option here would be to make Greenland an organized territory, much like Guam or Puerto Rico. Thereby, they keep their autonomy and government intact while being able to get the cash injection sorely needed from the US, as well as military protection. In return, the US would get access to mineral rights, strategic placement in the Arctic for defense purposes, as well as sovereign trade routes through the Northwest Passage. So there's a lot of things that are at play here. I would give this a 10 to 15% chance of happening, which is really high, but I think strategically and tactically it makes a lot of sense for both the US and Greenland, who ultimately want their independence from Denmark. But if you're thinking, why would Greenland trade one dad for another? Well, money, really. US has more of it. If you look at Guam, Puerto Rico, American Samoa, the Northern Mariana Islands, US Virgin Islands, and say, hey, they all became US territories, but at the end of the day, they have much higher poverty rates than in the continental 50 states. Why would Greenland do this? Well, that's because the other US territories aren't sitting on rare earth mineral reserves. They have tourism. Greenland has mineral reserves, access to fertile fishing grounds, offshore oil, and shipping rights. We've mentioned this many, many times. While the idea of the US acquiring Greenland under President President-elect Trump's leadership has sparked discussions, the reality is that such a move faces significant obstacles. Like, it sounds good on paper, but there are a lot of geopolitical agendas here, and logistically it's pretty tough, with tons and tons of moving pieces. The aspirations of Greenland's people for independence and the geopolitical implications make this a complex issue with actually a low likelihood of realization. What are your thoughts on this topic? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful videos on current events. And remember, kindness is the rent we pay on Earth, so do something nice for someone.